Hello 7E, receiving students and receiving teachers. Thank you, take your seat. Receiving students and receiving teachers and 7E. Before we start our lesson for today, I would like to introduce myself and the other model teachers. Then we will go to our lesson for today. Receiving students and receiving teachers, my name is Mr. Namari, and I am one of the model teachers who will be taking you for maths throughout this year. I have other model teachers who are here who will also introduce themselves to them, their name.
Right, hello, 7Es and grade 7 receiving students. All right, I'm Miss Irima, and I'm going to be taking you also for maths this year. So I hope I enjoy working with you all. Thank you.
Hello, receiving teachers and students plus model class. I'm Mr. Dumo. I'll be one of your maths teachers as well. I'll be taking you for maths lessons all throughout this year as well. Thank you.
Okay, the other model teachers have already introduced themselves to you. So receiving teachers and receiving students, you should know their name by now. So if anytime they come on teaching, you call them by the name that they have already introduced to you. Okay, for this week, I will be teaching you. Now, receiving students and 7E, we will go on into our lesson today. Our lesson topic for today is on understanding fractions. This is going to be our first lesson for this year. Now, before we go on to our lesson for today, lesson topic for today, receiving students and 7E, can you give me some examples of fractions? I know you have come across to this word fractions in grade 6, grade 5, and grade 4. So this word fraction is not going to be new to you. And I'm sure that you know what fractions are. Can you give me some examples of fractions? Receiving students, you can give examples of fractions to your teacher. Tara? Okay, let's have Tara.
1/3.
1/3, very good. Okay. Any other simple fractions? Clement?
Half.
Half. Yes, half is one of the fractions. Let's have last one from Ruthie. One quarter. Now, receiving students and 80s, I hope you have given examples of simple fractions. Now, here on the board, we have some examples of simple fractions. Now, receiving students, this first part of the lesson, we will try to understand what fraction is. Now, here on the board, you will see that in our daily life, fractions are being used. Some of the activities, daily life meaning some of the activities that we do apply fractions. And here on the screen, I have some examples of how we use fractions. We sometimes, when we tell time, we do not know that fraction is also involved while we are telling time. It can be shown, or sometimes we try to tell it by telling time. We have other examples, like when we are using shapes, we try to mention fraction in probably dividing a shape into parts where we also involve fractions in there too. Other examples, like cutting cake. When we cut, or when there is a celebration, or let's say birthday, we do not realize that when we slice cakes or whatever, we also involve fractions. You can see these are examples of fractions, how we involve fractions in our daily life. Okay, I've just given you 3 examples, receiving students and ATs. There are many examples that you can think of. So now you see, don't think that fractions is just learned in schools. In our daily life, we also apply fractions. So let us understand that fractions is also involved in our daily life. Now, in fractions, we have 2 numbers, which is top number and bottom number, okay? Now, if you look at the screen, I have given you an example of a fraction. What fraction is given on the screen, receiving students, and 7e? Okay, Florence, let's say Florence.
2/5.
2/5, very good. Now on the screen you can see 2/5 given. Now who can tell me, what do we call the top number of the fraction? Okay, I'll have Malvin. Malvin, can you give us the answer? What do we call the top number of the fraction?
Numerator.
Good, very good. Numerator. Is that correct? Receiving students in 7E, we call the top number numerator. What do we call the bottom number? Okay, let's have LC.
Denominator.
Denominator. Class, is she correct? Yes, we call the bottom number denominator. Now, what does the top number represent? We know that numerator is the top number of the fraction and the bottom number is denominator. What does the numerator indicate in the fraction? Okay, let's have Polycilla.
The top number shows how many parts you have.
Very good. The top number of the fraction, which is the numerator, shows how many parts you have, or it can be how many parts that you have taken out from the whole part of the fraction, which is given. Now, what does the bottom part shows? Okay, let's have Kalen. Kalen?
The bottom number shows how many parts there.
Okay, the bottom number shows how many parts there are, or it can be the total number of the parts. So, for example, let us look at this example here. This shape has been divided into how many parts? How many parts? 5 parts. Now, how many parts are shaded, Lisa? How many parts of this shape is shaded?
2.
Okay, two parts of the shape is shaded. So, two parts is the part which shows which is being shaded. And that is the numerator. Two parts out of 5 parts is red, or which is being shaded. 5 parts is the whole of the total parts of the shape. So now receiving students and atheists, you should know what numerator is and what denominator is and what they indicate in the fraction. Now receiving students and atheists, we will go into our first learning activity to understand fraction. Now, you have an activity which is on the screen, dividing equal size parts. Receiving students and 7E, can you read the question which is on the screen? What fraction of this shape is shaded? Okay. We will try to do an activity and find out what fraction of that shape is being shaded. Okay, receiving students, your teacher will try to draw up the shape on the board, or if the teacher has the A4 blank papers, quickly distribute them and then try to copy that diagram or the shape on the A4 paper and try to work out what fraction of the shape is being shaded. First one there. Receiving students and 7E, the hint is you have to divide the shape into equal parts in order for you to find the amount of fraction or what part of the fraction has been shaded. So that's the hint. I'm giving you the hint is you divide the parts or the shape into equal parts. You should give one to those group there. I told you to pass it. Okay, it shouldn't take you that long. Let's try and give the solution to that question. So, how many parts, what fraction of the shape is shaded? Okay, let's have Donald. Huh? Donald, can you show your group's work? What did your group come up with?
Okay. Yeah, this shape, it have 8 parts. So 3 is been divided, so it's 3, 8.
3, 8. So how many parts has been shaded?
3.
3 parts has been shaded. So it is 3, 8 of the parts has been shaded. Now, receive it, students and 80s. What shape is that? What is the name of that shape? No, the name of the shape. This shape here. The shape has its name. What's the name of this shape, receiving students and 80s? We know that 3, 8 of this part of this shape has been shaded. My question is, what is the name of the shape? Tara?
The name of the shape is hexagon.
Okay, Tara says hexagon. Any other answers? Parisha. Okay.
Octagon.
Octagon. Okay, we have 2 answers there, hexagon and octagon. Now, the name of the shape is octagon. Good try, Tara. It's not hexagon, it is octagon. Hexagon has 6 sides. Okay, this shape is octagon, which have 8 sides. Okay, so if you divide also a hexagon, you will have, if you want to find the parts, you will have 6 parts or 6 sides. So receiving students in 7E, the name of this shape is octagon. Now our next learning activity. Before we go on to our next learning activity, now you know that if you want to find a fraction or find out what fraction of the shape is shaded, the hint is you divide the shape into equal parts. That will make it easy for you to identify how many parts of the shape is shaded. So that's the solution to what we have done shortly in our activity, receiving students in 80s. 3, 8 is shaded. Now our next learning activity is expressing one quantity as a fraction of another. In fraction, we can express a quantity as fraction of another. We can do that in fraction. So here I have an example. Hapo had 1 kina and spends 55 toya on biscuit. The question is, receiving students and 7E, what fraction of his money has he spent? Now receiving students 7E, can you work out that? Got the answer? Receiving students and 7E, it won't take you long. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Hint is 1 kina is equal to 100 toyas. So, how many, what fraction of money has he spent? Let's have Emmanuel. Emmanuel?
55 over 100.
Okay, 55 over 100 amount he has spent. So the answer is, what fraction of his money has he spent? He has spent 55 over 100 toya of his money. So that is the amount of fraction of money that Apo has spent. Now when you are dealing with money, and you want to find out what fraction of amount of money, or it can be measurement, length, or what, you need to change the units to equal parts, okay? Same unit. Change the unit to same unit. Like 1 kina. So we are trying to find 1 kina. How much he spent 1 kina to buy the 55 toya biscuit. So 1 kina has to be changed to 100 toya. This is just for an example. In other units, other measurements, you should use the same thing. Always change the units to same unit before you can identify the fraction that has been used. Now, receiving students and ATs, I have 3 activities for you, exercise, for you to do on what we have just done in our learning activities. So, you can take out your books and start off with these 3 activities. They are very simple activities. The first activity is on the screen. Receiving students and 70, the first activity is write the fraction that is shaded. Now, if you look at that shape there, it has been already divided into equal parts, and some parts of that fraction has been shaded. So you have to identify what fraction of the shape is being shaded. E and receiving students. If you have been given students' worksheet book, then the exercise is also in the students' worksheet book. Okay? If you have not been given students' worksheet book, okay, you can copy the question which is on the screen. The same question is also in the students' worksheet book. Okay, students, I will go to the next question. That is your next question. Question number 2. Question start from book finish. Just answer a question. No need to draw the shape. You just answer. Finish. Finish. Receiving students and 70. Our last question. Last question is on the screen. answers only, answers only. Students, I'll go back to question number 1 for the case of those students who did not copy. Finish. Right, if you think that if you have space, enough space, you write it there. How much space you can use that? Yes. Students, if you think that you have enough space in the student's workbook, you can write your answers on the workbook. If you think that there's not enough space, you can use your exercise book to write the answers. Receiving students and 7E. We are about to, unfortunately time has caught up with us, so we will answer only one question, which is the first question, and the next 2 questions will be marked by your class or the receiving teacher. So receiving teacher, you have to check the other answers to the other questions which has been given on the screen and which is also on the student's workbook. So receiving teacher, I hope you check the other 2 activities which have been given. For the meantime, we will look at question number 1. Okay, receiving students and 8 what is the answer for question number 1? Write the fraction that is shaded. Okay, I'll have Michael. Michael? Okay, Michael, what fraction of the shape is shaded?
2 parts is shaded.
2 parts is shaded. Okay, Michael says 2 parts is shaded. Very good. Now, he says that 2 parts of that shape is shaded. And what is the fraction?
250.
What's the name of the shape? 5 sides, 6 sides, hexagon. 8 sides, octagon. How many sides there? 5 sides. Yes. Joshua.
Pentagon.
Very good, pentagon. The shape which is being shown on the screen there, or the activity that you have done, is pentagon. Now, receiving students, and it is when we are trying to divide or try to find out the fraction which is being shaded, it is important that you must divide the shape into equal parts, or divide the units into equal parts, so that you can easily identify the fraction, Now receiving students and 7E, our key phrase for today is fractions. With that, receiving students and 7E, thank you very much for your participation. I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you. Thank you very much.